This morning is a very important morning for us to really to be present, understand that there's items and issues that need to be addressed because there are some really major concerns that we are facing throughout the city of Carson. So in that, I would like to let you know that this morning, this candidate forum is going to be inclusive to the fact of dealing with that treasurers for the first forum, council member for the second forum, and city clerk for the third forum. If you bear with us, I'm quite sure that you will be able to have these candidates to be able to address these issues that that's going to be presented to them to the best of their ability, and hopefully when you leave from here, you will have your mindset or have your mind made up exactly that you feel that the best candidate probably responded to you and your concerns. So with that, let's get it on.
Good morning to everyone. My name is Karen Avila. I am the current city treasurer, and so Robert asked me to join him and to ask some questions because I probably know a little bit about the job. So my questions are going to be directed at all candidates, and I'm going to ask that you all have an opportunity to answer them. You probably will be more comfortable going to the podium, or I can pass the microphone down and you can come back and forth, whatever makes sense for you. My first question is, what do you believe the duties of the city treasurer's office are? And we'll start, ladies first.
Oh, yeah.
My name is Monica Cooper, and of course I am a candidate.
Just a minute. Keep talking.
Okay, to answer the question, essentially the city treasurer is the overseer of the money that come into the city. She collects all of the monies that come in. He deposits those monies into the bank. She also invests those monies. She writes checks out for payrolls, for reimbursements of travel expenses and things of that nature, and also collections. So that's what I believe that a city treasurer has a job.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Emilio Ramos Loyola. I'm a natural Filipino and American citizen by law. The duties of the treasurer is to protect, number one, to protect the city fund. That's number one for me. Number two is make sure the office is fully secure, protected by any means of type of securities. Security system, especially protecting the document, the computer, and all those affected by recording all the records as far as finance is concerned. It is also the duties of the treasurer to train all the cashier, internal and external, to make sure they're doing their job, protecting the funds wherever they are. Next one is to make sure also the office is restricted only for the employees of the Treasury Department. They should protect that, nobody else, because that's a very, very sensitive area to allow anyone else who are not authorized. So, lastly, to protect and preserve this dignity of the finance department of the city.
My name is Eddie Duque. Having worked with Treasury operations for more than 16 years, thank you. With Treasury operations for more than 16 years, there are a few important elements of what the duties are. The number one is safeguarding the city's funds. That's number one. And ensuring that investments are made appropriately that follow state and federal guidelines for investment of those funds. And one of the other elements, which is a sense of an overall responsibility, is to be a watchdog for city residents. A watchdog in terms of what expenditures are occurring and what direction the city is going in terms of its use of funds. So I see it twofold. The technical elements, if you will, of the position, which are to not only do disbursements and cashiering and whatnot, but overall to make sure that the city's funds are safeguarded and also to be a watchdog for city residents.
My next question is, please share with us your experience and duties working for a public agency, specifically as it relates to treasury management and public fund investing. Can you tell us exactly what your role is in that? Is it oversight? Are you developing policies? Try to be as specific as you can, please.
On my part, like I said in my previous statement, I was in the Navy for 20 years. I was trained, I was sent to school for Navy management training. And I was assigned as auditor for Central, wherever I go, where there is Navy base, ships. I perform audit of all offices of the Navy, Carson office, who handles accounts. And we are trained by the rules of the United States Navy. We don't make our own judgment, but we make our own judgment only if we found something that's not or illegal. Yes, in the military, we were trained hard to make sure that, especially in regards protecting the finance of the military, we are trained so hard for that, and I take it all the way till I conducted it, used it, till I retired from the Navy. And also when I retired from the Navy, I also was hired by the Los Angeles Air Force Base to audit their finance confidential records. I was there by myself, but I cannot tell you what are those because those are confidential. I was also a payroll clerk, timekeeper for the longshoremen in the Long Beach Harbor. I handled about a lot of payroll for time ship for the longshoremen. So my experience is not, I'm saying, better than anyone else, but I have an extended experience. I learned about finance.
I've been an employee with the state of California for 23 years. What I currently do now is I oversee the revenue that comes into my department. My department collects over 60% of the state general fund. Part of what I do includes developing guidelines and how the monies are handled. Also, auditing procedures on how we audit those monies and track those monies. I have a staff of people that handle the money that I have to monitor to ensure that they're processing those monies properly. I've been doing this, or I've been having this oversight of this responsibility for the last 15 years. In addition, I have also owned my own business here in Carson, Carson and also Marietta. Owned a business for 15 years, and I've had a staff, 5 to 7 employees. And of course, owning a business, you have to know how to manage the income and how to track it. So that is my experience with oversight and developing policy in regard to public and some private. I am against removing the investment responsibility from the treasurer. And the reason I'm against it is I believe that the motivation for wanting to take the responsibility from the treasurer are questionable. So under those circumstances, I would not support removing that responsibility from the treasurer.
In regards to the investment responsibility, there is a law, I believe it's a state law, that investment has to be handled by the treasurer. So that's the law. I don't know where the mayor got the information about taking away. He has to go through the thing to change that. But I don't think we should not remove that from the responsibility of the treasurer, but because that's the fact. Treasurer is responsible for handling funds.
I actually spoke on this item at the city council meeting. First of all, I cautioned that the council, and it could be whomever, it was the mayor, in my understanding, who put this item on. And I really cautioned that kind of discourse in the public arena, because investors look at that and they start to assume that something is wrong with the city. And Lord knows that the papers can quickly pick up something, and next thing you know, it gets into the New York Times, and you are the subject of an investigation because what is going on there. So I cautioned about this, and that's why it's very important, I think, to really know the mechanics and what agencies, like the Securities Exchange Commission, no small agency obviously, or for that matter, any of the auditing powers that the state has used against the other municipalities. And so I was against this. I spoke against it based on my experience. And and one thing that's important is it's not just my opinion. There are legal ramifications about it that are supported by state law, although I'm not an attorney, I will qualify that. So I think it's important that we make sure to be careful about those types of proposals, because they can not only damage the perception of the city, but the bond ratings of the city as a whole, which is our joint credit and our ability to do infrastructure projects, to do some of the dreams that we have here for the city of Carson.
This is the time that the community, or the residents have this time to interact with any questions that you might have for the candidates.
Basically, my name is Anna Megan. I'm a resident and employee here at the city. My question is, back in October, this past October, the city council approved a new position, the city controller, and the majority of its duties actually fall under purview of the city treasurer. was curious as to how exactly you guys would address that issue, because the city controller position's core responsibility is to do the auditing and setting policy for how our financial and everything is to be operated. And I spoke with that council meeting because I was against that, because I believe that that belongs to the treasurer. We, the people, vote for the treasurer. And unlike you, will vote you out. And so I had a problem with that being an appointed position. So I want to know what is you guys' if you guys had time to review the job specs. It was approved back in October this past year. And then the second part of my question is slightly off, but the city treasurer position is a full-time position. And I want to know if whether or not, if you were elected, would you guys have a problem with resigning your current position and working full-time at the city? Well, whether or not you guys are planning that. Because if you're not going to be available to work full-time, I'd like to know now so I don't vote for you. No, because it's a full-time salary position, so that's why I want to know. No one's addressed that issue, and I know you guys are all working at it, so I just want a general honest answer.
Yes. Let's keep it in perspective here. If the mayor come in and ask you to do some type of activity or function, will you do it? And how long, the first question was, how long each party lived in the city of Carson? All right, that's my question.
I've been in the city of Carson since 2009. I've lived in the city of Carson since 2009. I've actually been in the city for 25 years, operating a business, going to school, and all that. As far as being willing to turn in, Mr. Deere, if I'm approached to do something that's inappropriate, or if I see something that's being done inappropriate, wouldn't have a problem with it. I have done it before, and I wouldn't have a problem with it.
I am a resident of Carson since 1980, and I'm going over 35 years now. And my family here, I own and rent my house, and I've been serving the community as a public servant. I served the city for 10 years as commissioner, different commission, former Mayor Thomas, he appointed me. And as far as the mayor is concerned about telling me what he wants to do, I just will say politely to him, sir, it is my responsibility to take care of the city's funds, nothing else. If he wants me to do something beyond that, no. If he insists, then I will tell the city attorney. I'm glad you asked or to tell us that question. One has to oversee where the money goes, where are the money spent, and that's what I will be recommending. One of my goals is to recommend that we should have a controller, because with this big money account that we have, someone has to oversee, not just the treasurer. And all due respect to the treasurer, that's how we work in the military. Not even in a private business corporation where I work, there is a controller. The controller's job is to make sure administratively working good, and not just the finance. Make sure all the employees are trained. All the departments, especially the payroll department, make sure they are exactly audited, and that's what one of the understand the duties of the controller, to make sure all the funding are balanced and safe.
whether or not if they are elected.
Will they resign from your previous position where you had and take on a full-time position of the city treasurer?
I just resigned from the city clerk department to get involved and work for the city as a treasurer. Like I said, that's my final goal in my life. I want to save the city for bankruptcy because I know that's what my goal.
Okay. Anybody? That's fine.
I will be here to work for the city of Carson full time. That's the first question that was laid out. And I would be proud to do so. I will be coming home after working for many different cities and bringing all of my experience to bear here at the city of Carson, and then some. I don't know the history or exactly what happened in order for that proposal to come forward in regards to the controller position, or for that matter, why those elements that are specific to the treasurer's office were added to that job specification. But I do have to say this, because I've been thinking about this for some time, that the check to balance the council of proposals that occur even by the city manager is the city attorney's office. The city attorney's office is not to be below the city manager. They are equal in terms of their stature. And so the city attorney's office, in my perspective, should have weighed in at that point in time to say that those are duties of the treasurer's office. You are violating city code, you are violating what the residents themselves have set out to do here in the city of Carson. Responsibility for holding the line legally and making sure that things are above board in that respect is the city attorney's office. The city treasurer's office, if I were to be elected to the position, I can go up there and stand with all of you in public comment period and say whatever I want to say. I could be 1,000% right. But when you have a city attorney's office that is not making that distinction, then the check doesn't balance out the legislative part of government itself. So I didn't want to get into a lesson about it, but the treasurer's office I can say it, you can say it, but it really comes down to a city attorney's office that is going to stand with the residents. And do you have that?
Yes, I would be willing to give up my position with the state to come work full-time for the city of Carson. And as far as the issue with the hiring the controller, I have to say I have not researched that particular issue, but based on what has been said, I'm not in support of having another individual controller to take on some of the responsibilities that obviously we already have a treasurer in place to implement. So that's my response.
Yes. Let's keep it in perspective here. If the mayor come in and ask you to do some type of activity or function, will you do it? And how long, the first question was, how long each party lived in the city of Carson? All right, that's my question.
I've been in the city of Carson since 2009. I've lived in the city of Carson since 2009. I've actually been in the city for 25 years, operating a business, going to school, and all that. As far as being willing to turn in, Mr. Deere, if I'm approached to do something that's inappropriate, or if I see something that's being done inappropriate, wouldn't have a problem. I have done it before, and I wouldn't have a problem.
I am a resident of Carson since 1980, and I'm going over 35 years now. And my family here, I own and rent my house, and I've been serving the community as a public servant. I served the city for 10 years as commissioner, different commission. Former Mayor Thomas appointed me. And as far as the mayor is concerned about telling me what he wants to do, I just will say politely to him, sir, it is my responsibility to take care of the city's funds, nothing else. If he wants me to do something beyond that, no. If he insists, then I will tell the city attorney.
I'm really concerned about another Bell situation, and it just really scares the hell out of me.
Thank you.
Difficult question, because we're not in the office at this time, right? But I think that there's some positive things that we can continue doing, because there is a lot of good that's occurring in the treasurer's office. I think that the city has an issue with not making good decisions about its financial systems. And having worked as an information technology project manager, I think that, and why would this be important? Because if you want transparency, you need to be able to pull up the information. You need to be able to find that information. You need to be able to collect it. And you need to see who's signed off on it. So in the city of Bell, for example, when that case started breaking, I said, there is no way there was not collusion here. No way. And sure enough, the body started getting pulled out, right? The skeleton started coming out of the closet. So that, I think, is a major threat to the future of Carson, because unless we get good decisions about the type of financial systems that we're putting in, we might be faced with that problem. Because even Pasadena, which failed to put in internal controls and failed to have people in the process and relied on automation in order to make the decisions by people who are unqualified, that is a danger to the future of Carson.
I have had an opportunity to review some of the cash yearly records of the treasurer's office. And what I have found in many of those records are poor records. Some of the receipts do not have signatures of who has received the money. Some of the receipts don't have dates as to when the money was dispersed. And a lot of these receipts go back in time to 2008. And this is in regard to the petty cash reimbursement fund. That to me is a problem, because you have this money going out and you don't know who it's going to. And as a treasurer, it would seem that these records should or would have been reviewed, these receipts, as part of the treasurer's responsibility. In my organization, every receipt that is dispersed I make sure that they're completed properly. And the many receipts that I've seen from the treasurer's department, there's a lot of problems with it. And they haven't, the information has been brought out, but it's just been kind of pushed to the side because of the fact that it is not substantial money. It's very small amount. So in essence, it's under the radar. So, you know, no big deal. But for me, it's a big deal. Every dollar needs to be accounted for here at work and in the state.
Number one is that politicians are doing so nicely to their constituents, giving away fundings to non-profit organizations. Non-profit organizations, I'm not against them, but I'm just, you know, the money that goes to the cities is used for all the services. We should not give it away. Okay? I just saw the inventory of how many were given a free room, free places and equipment. Gee, almost $1 million free money was given. I was working in the city and I have access to all those things. That's what I know. And my boss said, Jesus, if we can use that money, we have a lot of places, buildings that need repairs. Like, for example, the Veterans Park where I worked for 10 years. And we donated some equipment and tools for doing that. So, what I can do, if non-profit organization asking for money, I will donate my salary, part of my salary. I will explain to them the money that comes in here is for our facilities. And I will help them with those non-profit organizations. I will help them to organize as a non-profit organization. I am a non-profit agent of the insurance for organizing a non-profit organization. I can help them. So that's the one education I would like to inform the public that please don't ask too much money from the city. We need that money to repair all the buildings, to raise their pay raise, or give the employee pay raise. We never get a raise for many years. Thank you.
My question is, as mentioned, there are many nonprofit organizations within the city of Carson that uses the treasurer's office as a public clearinghouse. Do you agree with this as the money is commingled with the city's money? And what would you do as an elected official? And I say elected because when we elect you, we are looking for a person who's willing to take a stand for the residents of Carson and not necessarily a council member. As an elected position, as you know, you can only be terminated by the citizens of Carson. I would love to understand how you would pursue encouraging council members to protect the welfare of the city of Carson and the Treasury office. And again, if you agree with the publisher's clearing of holding the monies for nonprofit organizations, would you do away with it? And how would you encourage council people to go forward with that?
I do not agree that the nonprofits should be commingled with the city. I would, or city funds, I would encourage the council to separate these monies and encourage them and tell them the benefits and the disadvantages of continuing the practice of having these funds commingled.
I myself, like I said, I don't agree that non-profit organization money should be kept by the city treasurer. However, if there is a law, then I cannot say no. That's the law to protect the money of the public. But like I said, I've been doing finance for the government. I've never heard about city treasurer keeping a non-profit organization's money for safekeeping. So it is dangerous to keep the money of non-profit organization to be commingled with the city's funds. Thank you.
And that is seriously a politically charged question. But I think I can answer it.
The reason I'm trying to stop you all is because the question is not actually accurate. And I think people would want to know the answer to what is actually going on. So I want to give you the opportunity to do that. We don't actually collect money for nonprofits. What Latrice is referring to is we have had a number of situations that have occurred where, is that one? For instance, an earthquake in the Philippines, Haiti, Chile, where the community has come together and wanted to do fundraisers. That began a place where we didn't really have anywhere to hold the money, so the treasurer, under my direction, decided to be the trustee. So various groups would have raise money, and then we would forward it on to nonprofit groups, not the opposite. However, what that started, and this is, I believe, what Ms. Carter was getting to, is different groups started to come to the city and say, can we raise money and you hold it for us? And I was adamantly opposed to being a clearinghouse or a pass-through, but what that resulted in was the mayor and the mayor pro tem in their subcommittee causing my policy on trustee accounts for them to revise it, so that basically anyone who wants to come to the city and say, hey, I want to put a statue out there, can I set up an account in the city, can do that by council directive. So now I think that's what she wants to know, is how you feel about that.
I'm glad, I thank you for the description there because it adds a little more detail. I wrote the policy for goodwill donations at the city of Santa Ana. And so there is an appropriate place for goodwill donations for emergencies, such as Haiti, such as any other emergency that could occur in Carson. There is an appropriate place for that with an appropriate agency that handles that type of emergency. However, it is a concern, and it would be my concern, why we, as a treasurer's office, would have been inserted or become responsible for those elements that perhaps have been taken out. It sounds like they were taken out. And again, it is something that residents should know. It is something that the city attorney's office should weigh in on. And it is high concern that you would have nonprofit agencies, any nonprofit. It could be the Heart Association, something everybody, I think, here would believe in. But it is inappropriate. It's not just what you can do. It's what you should be doing. You know, just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it either. So I think you start getting into trouble when you start having municipal funds side by side with other agencies.
Questions for the current treasurer. Could you please give us an overview of your policies and just kind of tell us more about how you see the job, and also if you notice a misconduct, how would you deal with that?
So many of the candidates have talked about their policies, their rules. I don't know if they understand you write the rules. As a treasurer, you are responsible for those rules. You are a fiduciary. You are personally responsible to the public. That's why I'm so passionate about this position being elected and a check and balance, because I've seen people hold up my investment policy and say, hey, but there's rules. Yes, but do you know what those government code sections are, and do you know how to develop those rules? Because those are my rules. You know, you need to be able to do that as a treasurer. The fraud issues, many times, issues that come before us, and I have no issue taking it all the way up the food chain. I have had the district attorney's office, or members of the district attorney in my office, because when you see something that's wrong, and my successor are your eyes and ears. They have to have the courage to stand up. But you need to remember, folks, that the council does things like this trustee account, does things like wanting to take the investments away from the treasurer, and I stand before them and I argue. The controller position, I argue, but I only have 3 votes. You folks elect those people up there, and those 3 votes could override anything I say. But as an elected official, if I need to go to the press, if I need to bring in my own attorney, that's the power that I will use. Within this office, I have used the power to say, I'm not going to sign that check. I am not going to put my name on that check. So you, city attorney, have to tell me why. This needs to go back up the food chain for council approval. I can't do much once that happens. I heard one of the candidates mention some issues that are interesting because they came at the council floor before by one of the mayor's operatives about petty cash. And just because I can't leave that on the table, our office balances to the penny every day in the last 25 years that I have been there. We are audited every year. Our cash receipts are looked at. Petty cash has a limit of $75. It goes through about half a dozen approvals. Our office is the cash box. We see that it's a justified reimbursement for something that's allowable, and that the department head and the manager and the supervisor and God knows how many other people, I'm sure Emilio can tell you that, because in recreation probably takes 10 signatures. So I just want to be clear, I don't want that left on the table, that those kinds of things occur in the treasurer's office. So I'm hoping that anybody here has those kind of capabilities to manage all of those functions and not depend on that the rules are out there, the treasurer or the council will tell you what to do. You need to be able to do it because you're the one that is responsible to the people.